Hello, so in today's video, I'm going to talk about how to care for a baby Pacman frog. So my frog here is a camo Pacman frog. That's the morph I have. And you can see, right now, my frog's actually pretty big. He's pretty close to being moved into a soil substrate. But right now, I have him on a paper towel. Because if you have your Pacman frog on soil too soon, when they are feeding, they will consume some of the soil and it will cause them to get impacted and they will die from it. It is very hard, or it can be hard. I had a frog in the past get impacted and die, and no matter what I tried, how many baths I gave them and tried to get them to go to the bathroom, it wouldn't work. And that frog sadly passed away. So I've learned since then not to put your baby Pacman frog on soil too early. So I got this guy. He is almost ready to move into the soil, maybe a couple more centimeters. But I got him when he was 3.3 centimeters. That's when you're going to get most Pacman frogs about it that size. This one, I'm not sure yet. I think it's possibly female because it doesn't have any pads. But it could just be that it's not reached sexual maturity yet, so the pads aren't going to be there yet. Normally they'd have pads on like the inside of their thumb, like kind of in there on the inside of their thumb. They'd have like a dark brownish pad, and they use that during mating to hold on to the female. Now you also should never, no matter what the age, keep multiple of these frogs in the same enclosure because they are cannibalistic and they will eat each other. Emphasis on will. Not maybe, but will. They will eat each other. And you can see I actually do need to, I think I'm going to switch out this paper towel today. It's kind of dirty. They will try to burrow in the paper towel. It's kind of what he tried to do over there. Because normally they're burrowing frogs. I'm surprised he hasn't burrowed in this yet. I keep having to lay. There's layers here. I keep having to lay more down because this is his favorite spot. And he always burrows to the bottom. But, I think I'm gonna feed him in this video, and basically you don't really need to feed him more than 3 times a week, and it should just be about 15 mealworms, and I'd give him calcium and switch his diet up a bit from like mealworms to crickets to like normal worms, earthworms, because it gives them different nutrients, and I think I said that weird. Whatever. Yeah, this one I think is a very good looking morph. It's not the most colorful morph. It's kind of a natural coloring, but it's got this kind of like, it looks like a lung pattern on its back with the brown to the green. I really like this one. There's a lot of morphs of Pacman frogs, so make sure you do some morph research before you buy one to make sure you're getting the coloration you want. And it's not all about the coloration, you know. They're very fun frogs to keep too. Now, Pacman frogs do not move a lot. They sit in one spot. You're probably gonna come back in a week. It'll be in the same spot. Like, they only really move if they're hunting, which they don't really hunt. They just ambush. So if you hold something in front of them, it might take a while for them to notice it or for them to decide they're gonna attack, but they'll jump at it and bite it, use their tongue to grab it. And you might think this is looking like really fat. Also, why are you like sitting like this? Kind of look weird, whatever. They might look really fat. This is just how Pacman frogs look. Don't think that like your Pacman frog's really fat or this one's really fat. They just kind of look this way. Now, here's my hand up next to him. He's about 5 centimeters from butt to nose. And yeah, that's 5 centimeters about there. So I think you're supposed to move them in to the soil from about 7 to 9, or you can do it at 5. If you see he has the pads, then it's a male and it won't grow as big as a female, not nearly as big. So 5 would probably be safe. I would probably wait until 6 centimeters though. But then if it's a female, then I'd wait at least until 7, maybe even until 9 centimeters to move them into this substrate. The longer you wait, the better they'll thrive in the substrate. So your enclosure should have, for the baby Pacman frog, a water bowl, and make sure it's shallow. It's not hard to get into because these guys cannot climb to save their own lives. So you have to make sure it's not a very tall wall they have to get up to get in the water, because they will use it. You can see there's some shedding in there right now. And yeah, these guys do shed. You should have a fake plant, or well, you don't really need a fake plant, but I'd give them a hide or some sort of shade that they can go under. And then you want to keep it very humid, or at least the water bowl can kind of take care of that. At least keep their paper towels moist, because sometimes it's hard to keep humidity on in an enclosure like this, you know? So just at least keep their paper towels moist and have a water bowl. You want to have a hot side over here with a heat lamp. I just go to like Lowe's and get like lamps like these and then put a heat bulb in it. And then over here, you don't need this. This is just to keep these plants alive before I move them in here. And you don't really need a glass enclosure. Right now I have a paper tub, but I'm planning on making a really nice enclosure, which currently my dad, who loves to make stuff, is working on a big waterfall for, a big water feature. Being that they don't move much, you don't need a huge amount of space. You want the soil to be really deep for them to burrow when they're adults, but you don't need a huge amount of space because they, you know, they choose a burrow, they burrow, and they kind of just live their life out in that burrow. They'll get up to get in the water and go shed or something, but they'll come back to the same burrow, I've noticed. So you need, I'd say, at least a foot by a foot of soil space for them to burrow. And then you definitely do need a water bowl or feature, and it should not be deep. If you make it deep, they will drown, because these frogs are not good swimmers at all. They're really only good at burrowing and eating. And that's what makes them really cool pets. They do grow teeth when they're bigger, and they could bite your finger off depending on how big the frog is, but not at the baby. When they're babies, they can definitely not do that. He's bitten me once, and they're not aggressive either. Even if you're like, if you were attacking them, I don't think they'd bite you at all. I think they'd try to run away. Also, the reason he bit me was just because I was holding a mealworm and he missed, and they don't have very good aim. When they are adults, I would definitely be cautious. Try not to get your finger bitten off. It's more likely that they'll just leave some blood or something. They will like probably take blood when they're adults, but just try not to get your finger bitten. And yeah, you can see this enclosure here is just, I had it on the screens because, you know, the heat lamp, I don't want it melting anything that could melt, so I have it on a metal screen. That's why I don't just have this here separate. Yeah, you don't need to have it, and it's an adult enclosure. You just need to have this. I'm using this as a way to prop up the heat lamp, so I have it sitting in the adult enclosure. Now, I'm gonna pause the video and make sure I'm not missing anything. All right, so I'm back. Got a couple more tips. When you're getting your Pacman, definitely get them from a breeder that is selling them on paper towel, because if the breeder is not, like sphagnum moss or the soil, those can both cause impaction, and it is likely that the frog might have already consumed some of that and could become impacted. My first frog, I don't even think it got impacted when I had it. I think it was already impacted because I got it from a pet store, which you should never get a Pacman frog from a pet store. Other frogs are fine. Tree frogs, that's fine. You can get those from pet stores. They might be priced a bit high, but you can get those. But Pacman frogs, you shouldn't, because pet stores most likely do not know anything. Maybe there's one employee in a certain pet store that might, you know, keep their baby Pacman frogs right, but most pet stores will just have them on substrate, and that can cause them to become impacted even before someone buys them. So I would not get a Pacman frog from a pet store or a breeder that has them on sphagnum moss or soil. There are plenty of good breeders out there that know what they're doing. Surprisingly, I think there's probably more people that just put their baby Pacman frogs on soil than on paper towel just because they don't know, and then they're wondering why their Pacman frog stopped eating and died. So, you know, in your adult enclosure, even though this is not about adults, I'm just going to give this tip right away. You should have a hot side and a cold side and some shade for them too. I already talked about the soil being deep. And the reason you want this is you want a gradient so they can choose how hot they want to be. They get really big depending on gender and just depending on the frog as well. You'll have to make a water bowl suitable for their size, because once they get super big, maybe your small little water bowl doesn't fit them anymore, and you still do need to keep them very hydrated. If you're making a water feature, again, do not make it deep. They will drown in it. So maybe just have a waterfall that goes into a shallow creek or something. That's what I'm doing. So it's feeding time. And when you're feeding them, this calcium powder here, Calcium Plus, you should dust their food periodically with that, because it provides the calcium that they don't always get from their meals, you know, that they need. Oh, where are my tweezers? Well, here's, I think I'm gonna do a worm today because I have not fed him any worms in a long time. So I'm gonna take one of these worms and make sure there's not like a ton of substrate on them, because remember that can be harmful to your frog. And then I'm just gonna see if he goes for it. I'm gonna move this plant so you guys can see. I would normally use tongs, except like, I don't know where they are, so I'm just gonna use my hands. If he grabs onto it, he's not letting go. So I just have to get him to grab on. Just kind of dangle it in front of them. And maybe they'll go. Hopefully they go for it. He doesn't seem to, my Pacman frog doesn't really like worms. Whenever he has worms, he just doesn't really eat them. I can't find my mealworms for some reason. I don't know where they are. Did he just go for it? Oh, I didn't see. Oh, it looks like he's gonna go for it. He's doing his little, kind of prepping himself. Sometimes you'll see them kind of like shake their body a bit. Kind of prepping themselves for a lunge. Oh, oops. It can take them a really long time, but mine also just doesn't really like worms very much. So sometimes you just kind of have to give up on the worm and feed them something they'll eat. Here, I'm gonna put this worm back and try to find my mealworms. All right, so I found the mealworms, and this is what they look like. They're just these little worms here. You can get them at like any pet store. Pretty easy. So what I do is I have a separate cup like this that I have this powder in. That's just left over from the last feeding I did. I just kind of pick around in here and grab some worms. Throw them in there to be, actually this one's not alive. Okay, well. I try to grab live worms because they move around and then he's more likely to eat them. These ones aren't very big. They can get really big. It doesn't really matter the size. If they're smaller, though, you should probably feed them a bigger quantity of worms. It's a pretty big one there. So it can depend a bit on the size of your frog, but you're going to want to feed them graciously, you know, because they do grow fast and you want to give them the energy to allow them to grow fast. Now, your frog might not always eat all the worms you give him, but just give him as many as he would like. Especially because you're only really feeding him 3 times a week. Alright, so that's quite a lot, actually. Drops my ukulele. So there's all these worms. Take some of the powder here. You just kind of dust it on there. And you shake it up so that it gets on the worms, because that's how you're supposed to feed him. And now the worms are all dusted up. Now let's see if I can, yeah, there we go. You can either feed these guys with tongs, or you can just drop some worms in front of them and wait for them to snap at them. I'm going to do both today so that I can show you kind of both ways. There's some worms in front of him. He'll go for those eventually. In the meantime, I'm going to look for my tongs. Yep. Oh, yeah, he just grabbed a bunch. That was a lot. Wow. I don't know if I've ever seen him get that many worms in one bite. Alright, got my tweezers, so... Also, they will climb under him and stuff, so sometimes you'll want to like set your frog in water after, so that all the ones clinging to the bottom of him like fall off. Yep, oh, he went for it, but he kind of missed. Oh, that's him swallowing. You'll see them close their eyes and do that because they use their eyes to swallow. Don't be like alarmed. Don't think he's choking or anything when he does that. Let me grab that off of you. You gonna go for it? He'll go for it eventually. See if I can get the better view with the camera. Get my hand out of the way. Here we go. He'll go for it eventually. Sometimes you want to move around him a bit until he grabs that. Yep, there you go. And then you can feed him with tongs. It's a bit longer. It takes a bit longer to do that. Or you can just throw a bunch in front of him. Either works. If you think they're scared of you and they're not eating from the tongs, that's a possibility. But it's not likely. A lot of the time, they just wait for the perfect moment, and it takes them a while to do it. Like, I'm always poking around with these guys. He'll be eating as I poke around and try to keep them in front of him. Definitely not scared of me. Alright, so that's enough feeding-wise. You kind of get the point there. You just feed them a lot, and they eat a lot. That's what they're good at. That's why a lot of people keep these pets. Anyway, these guys, definitely wash your hands and make sure, like, not even soap is left on them. You really want to rinse them good. You definitely, any water you have that you spray the paper towels with, or this water with, it has to be dechlorinated. And you could wear gloves. That's one of the safest ways to handle them, because, you know, as amphibians, they have very permeable skin, and something you have on your hands could get inside of them easily and kill them. So these guys, being amphibians, aren't really a pet made for handling. If you are going to handle them, though, then use gloves or make sure your hands are very clean like mine. And when you handle them, you know, you just kind of very delicately pick them up, like you've seen me do prior in the video. And if you're going to handle them in the future, you don't want to just like randomly, you don't want to leave them alone their entire childhood and then like just randomly in the future pull them out of their enclosure and handle them. They're going to be like, what's going on? You know, they've never been handled before. So if in the future you are planning on handling them, you want to get them acclimated to it prior when they're babies like this. Alright, well, thanks for watching. Hermit the Pacman Frog thanks you. And make sure to pass this information on if you love Pacman frogs. Because, you know, we want to pass this on in the community to make sure more people are taking care of their baby Pacman frogs right. If there's anything I forgot to mention about Pacman frog care, I'm going to put it down in the description so that you guys aren't missing anything. The dart frogs are doing great. That's nice.